Good afternoon, everybody. This is Kevin Askew, Director of Sales at TechExtend, and I want to welcome you to today's Datacore Software webinar, the Storage Hypervisor, Taking Storage Virtualization to the Next Level. Today's agenda will include a little bit about TechExtend, followed by the Storage Hypervisor webinar hosted by Don Hickman, Senior Consultant, VCP at TechExtend, followed by a questions and answers period and a summary at the end. TechExtend is a leading value-added reseller of infrastructure solutions. We can be found on the web at www.techextend.com. We are a Datacore reseller focused on virtualization and SAN Symphony. We also offer team development services around assessment, implementation, and training. Datacore falls under our virtualization platform worldview, which includes end-to-end development needs around virtualization, including security, storage management, business continuity and disaster recovery, performance monitoring and management, software development and testing, server and workstation administration. Now, without any further ado, I'll turn things over to Don to start today's webinar. Don?
Thanks, Kevin. To get us started, let's have every one of you on the webcast pause a moment to dream a little. How would you spec the ultimate storage machine? Here's a hint. Mine would be lightning fast, bulletproof, and take up very little room. At the same time, it would be expandable and shareable, and not to mention inexpensive. Okay, I'll even accept something a little pricier. I'd bet that given the money, you'd probably opt for the biggest, fastest, most feature-rich storage system on the planet. And in your personal fantasy world, this ideal piece of gear would never ever get old. Sorry to startle you with a reality check. The ultimate storage machine soaring in your brain is nowhere to be found. Unrelenting obsolescence is the single biggest agent working against us. You simply can't stop the aging process. You know too well how today's sporty race car soon slows to feel more like a tired old farm horse, especially given the voracious appetite for storage resources generated by our faster centralized virtual servers and desktops. How can it possibly keep up with tomorrow's needs when compared to newer models? Then there are the shifting price-performance ratios to consider in future versions. Surely, when I ask the question again in just a few months, your earlier criteria for the ultimate storage machine and possibly the ideal supplier will radically be revised. Perhaps your outlook will be flavored by recent budget guidelines, novel new announcements, and the shifting sands of the storage industry, all of which have to factor strongly in every upcoming hardware refresh and every capacity expansion decision. On the positive side, each of those purchase events gives you a chance to scout for the latest state-of-the-art technologies, those that didn't arrive in time for this year's wish list. What am I getting at? No one storage system can serve all your foreseeable needs. Accept it, plan for it, set up your environment to take advantage of it. Just have a look around. Clearly, we're in the midst of a buyer's market, and it's expected to endure for another 4 to 5 years. Throughout this period, every major storage manufacturer flush with inventory is eager to earn your business, each one luring you with their broad portfolio of products and options. In order to exploit this favorable window, you must first shed any aversion to owning different models and brands. Trust me, you'll be surprised at the attractive lineups you have to choose from. Variety is nothing to be feared. On the contrary, embrace it. Our partner, Datacore Software, lets you harness the collective power of such diverse storage devices under a singular storage hypervisor called SAN Symphony V. The portable layered software insulates you from the nuances of the underlying disk hardware, much in the way that server hypervisors hide the numerous idiosyncrasies that distinguish server class machines from companies like Dell, HP, and IBM. Your disk pools can incorporate the best and the most cost-effective among internal drives, solid-state flash cards, SAS, SATA, fiber channel, and iSCSI arrays, all managed in a unified way from a common console. Datacore ensures you can handle anything that's likely to come along with your planning horizon. For proof, look no further than the 20,000 plus installations they have spanning the globe over the past decade. Several hundred of them are on display on the Datacore website. Operationally, the Datacore software insulates your IT services from the chaotic turnover of equipment below. Now you can apply appealing new technologies without being handcuffed by past choices, effectively optimizing disk resources to the task at hand and doing so intelligently, dynamically, and without constant manual intervention. The financial implications of this novel software infrastructure are quite extraordinary. Interchangeable components translate directly into negotiating clout. How you wield that muscle is strictly up to you. You may use it to get a sweeter deal from your current storage manufacturer. Then again, if they haven't been kind to you, exercise the bargaining power with fresh suppliers who will do backflips to displace the underachievers. The storage hypervisor becomes your indispensable tool to lower CapEx. First, by saving you money on new equipment acquisitions, but just as importantly, by fully utilizing the assets already on the floor to reduce the frequency and volume of new hardware purchases. Our customers who work with Datacore find that they no longer rip and replace perfectly good equipment to remain compatible with the latest technologies. Both can live harmoniously in a common disk pool, and both benefit from the performance boosts attributable to Datacore's infrastructure-wide adaptive caching. Curious for some concrete statistics on the economical impact? One of Datacore's customers, Access, is a cloud service provider out of Atlanta, Georgia. Catering to thousands of Microsoft employees, partners, and customers, they estimate they have shaved more than $5 million in hardware data center costs and storage capacity over the last 3 years, thanks to the combination of Microsoft Server Hypervisor and Datacore's Storage Hypervisor. It's the only way they found to offer reasonably priced services for on-demand sales demos, training sessions, and proof-of-concept labs. They run about 25,000 virtual sessions per year and have logged more than 250,000 hours of demos and virtual labs on the platform. As you can imagine, these varied scenarios generate sudden, unpredictable demands on disk space, moving over 20 terabytes of data daily. The founder felt uneasy relying on the availability, performance, and scalability of their storage hardware. The equipment originally considered was expensive, inflexible, and represented an untenable recurring cost factor. They concluded that they could never have gotten their business off the ground if they had to dedicate hardware resources and disk capacity to recreate all these different configurations. Instead, Access runs a very slim physical data center that takes on many dynamic shapes and appearing far larger. They continually set up and tear down virtual environments for a few minutes or hours at a time, each venue tailored to the occasion. It's a virtualization technology fully exploited. Is that too big of an example for you, or too high-tech? Maybe you're into the manufacturing sector, more like the worldwide polyethylene pipe distributor, ISCO Industries. Datacore saved them at least $100,000 on a business continuity solution this year. In doing so, they also experienced a 35% speed up in their mail and terminal servers. It gets better. Disaster recovery times for their main accounting and sales systems went from over 16 hours down to a few minutes. Wondering what we could do for you using Datacore solution? Check out the numerous testimonials on datacore.com to get a good sense for cost containment and cost reduction possibilities across a range of vertical segments, and you should have a pretty good idea. And then contact us at TechExtend, and we can work through setting up a configuration that will fit your needs and desires. There's also a compelling OpEx rationale for virtualizing your storage environment. Merely controlling and monitoring different purpose-built devices under a single management tool brings big payoffs, lower administration costs, less retraining, and fewer errors. Then there's the reduced downtime component in the equation. In effect, the Datacore Storage Hypervisor standardizes and consolidates your operational practices from provisioning capacity to business continuity. It's the only sane answer to the inevitable assortment of equipment that will shuffle through your data center in the ensuing months. That's true whether you tend to be a large IT department, play a big role in a mid-sized business, or are about to launch your first service provider practice. In all cases, I have one suggestion for you. Do the responsible thing. Have a closer look at the capabilities and commercial advantages that Datacore Storage Hypervisor software brings you, and do it before you spend another nickel on more disks. You'll hear similar recommendations from trusted industry experts who make it their business to scrutinize vendor claims. ESG, the Enterprise Strategy Group, for example, published their extensive hands-on analysis of the Datacore solution. The outcome is very persuasive. Anyone considering or implementing an IT virtualization project should take a long look at the Datacore Sans Symphony V Storage Hypervisor. With that advice, let's hear your questions.
Thanks, Don. And now we'll take some questions from the audience. Okay, and it looks like we have one. You made reference to renting storage from the cloud. How do you do that?
To Datacore, cloud-based storage is really in the storage infrastructure that's virtualized, simply another tier, another class of storage. Datacore works, for example, with TwinStrata's Cloud Array to access subscription-based storage services from Amazon or AT&T, or even Rackspace. So whether you're trying to get additional storage off-premises that's in a public cloud or in a private cloud, supplier Datacore can facilitate that as a part of the overall storage pool.
Okay, and next question looks like we have is, it wasn't clear to me from the presentation how Datacore software migrates downtime. Can you elaborate, please?
The software is basically configured as a highly available scenario where the storage equipment can be taken out of service without impacting users or applications. To give you a more concrete example of that, New York Presbyterian Hospital runs two hot sites between New York and New Jersey. They regularly update that equipment, expand the capacity, and even migrate to new gear without having to take down any of their users. Their doctors, nurses, and administration staff really don't know what's going on behind the scenes. All the modernization that's going on, all the daily routine planned maintenance occurs without any outages.
Okay, next question. How is the software priced?
Datacore offers a range of price points, and they're determined by how much the disk space is being pooled and the features that are included. Most of the packages are all-inclusive, but there are also a few options that you can add to things. Say, for example, a mid-sized customer data center is running a paired copy
of the software running in tandem between either two buildings and a campus, or often two buildings within a metropolitan area, where those are fully replicated in real time in synchronous mirroring. What you can do at the initial install, which may be more modest, is expand in place by simply adding and upgrading your license. And if you're interested to hear more about how the licensing works, I'd suggest you get in touch with us and we'll discuss and create a proposal custom for you.
Okay, next question. In one of the customer examples, there was a reference to repurposing equipment for disaster recovery. Can you explain?
Sure. Basically, when a customer first do their server virtualization, it frees up the consolidation efforts as well as a number of their server machines. What Datacore does is reassign a pair of those machines to be used to run the Datacore software off-site without having to buy additional equipment. Note that in these circumstances where there's a primary data center and a disaster recovery site, the storage at each of those locations can be very different, because what you have at the branch location may be different from what you have at your main data center, and that gives you the full flexibility to exercise diversity in your storage.
Okay, next question. What did you mean by tiered pool of storage?
Tiering is a term that has been used recently to mean classes of disks, where you might have some that are very fast, let's say solid-state disks or flash cards, that are very, very fast but relatively pricey, in comparison to the normal hard disk drives. You'll have that complemented by mid-range storage and potentially very high capacity, very inexpensive storage resources that you might use for scratch disks or backup disks. What Datacore Software is doing is automatically directing the workloads and portions of those workloads to the most appropriate class of storage, using the device-independent auto-tiering features that are built in. Initially, to launch that in the easiest way, you'd set up preferences for what you consider your top tier, your mid-range tier, etc., and you can set up to 15 tiers within that. And then you establish those preferences for the software. Then the software basically takes over and makes the judgments calls dynamically as it sees workloads flying in and out of the storage. And this would be impossible to do as a system administrator. You simply couldn't juggle the different workloads in any way because you don't have this ability.
Okay, and please give us a better sense of the size of Datacore's current customers.
Sure. Datacore has been in business for over 13 years, so they have quite a range of customers. On the large end, these are very large enterprises running petabytes worth of storage behind Datacore. They use Datacore in front of the biggest, baddest storage devices known. These might be very large symmetrics from EMC, or Hitachi, IBM, or HP systems. It runs the full gamut. In all those cases, what Datacore does is improve the utilization of those resources, actually accelerating the speed that the customers see and that their users experience. The solution also increases the overall availability. Datacore allows them to fashion this tiered storage environment where they may in fact have very high-end equipment, mid-range and lower-end gear, either from the same supplier or a different supplier. On the other end of the spectrum, Datacore has relatively small customers, such as law firms that are running in small configurations, addressing a relatively small number of users. To them, however, this is just as critical as the big guys. So the price points are established to allow both of these environments to benefit equally from Datacore software.
Okay, and I'm just learning about virtualization. Will data software work with my normal unvirtualized systems?
Yes, Datacore will work with your unvirtualized systems. We tend to talk about the virtualized world, but in many cases, customers are just sampling virtualization. and getting a taste of the server and desktop virtualization platforms. But by and large, much of the current data center is running isolated servers in silos where the applications are confined to a specific server. So they haven't gone through any consolidation. The Datacore software absolutely services both those physical machines as well as the virtual servers equally. And in fact, that's a distinguishing attribute of the Datacore software, where the same user interface, the same storage pool, and the same resources can be offered as you transition from a physical world to a virtualized world. The layer that Datacore manages remains constant, and that constancy is perpetuated despite the changes you may be making in the choice of storage underneath and how you equip yourself throughout that life cycle.
Okay, next question. Where does the software sit in the existing environment?
Logically and conceptually, the software sits between the application and the operating system and the physical disks themselves. So as server virtualization, for example, sits between the operating system and the physical servers, a storage hypervisor is inserted in between there. To the applications and the operating systems, Datacore is transparent and appears to be a well-behaved disk resource. And to the disks behind Datacore, it appears to be a well-behaved application, making requests of the storage systems, so it's right smack in the middle. In some configurations, Datacore runs externally, like on a pair of servers, but it can also run inside virtual machines, where the applications, storage, and Datacore software all co-reside on the same physical servers. Datacore creates a virtual SAN within that same box and creates pairs of them between two physical servers for high availability and full redundancy.
Okay. Would you say the virtualization of storage is becoming as persuasive as the virtualization of servers? Is it becoming a best practice?
It is, and it's becoming essential. In fact, I would say that it's an urgent manifestation of what's happening in the server world. Because as you take on the consolidations, you start to create a couple of unanticipated results. One is that server consolidation demands lead to a mixed workload that generates and actually shows off an unexpected number of I/O bottlenecks that couldn't have been recognized ahead of time. The second thing it creates on the storage end is that it reveals that single point of failure that can be catastrophic to a virtualized environment. When architecting a solid virtualization or desktop virtualization infrastructure, you want to be virtualizing your storage with Datacore from the outset, making all that play properly and addressing the performance and availability issues as well as reducing the costs.
You are stressing device independence. Can you talk a bit more about the business value and what it's going to do for me?
Certainly. That's the heart of this whole discussion. Because the software is independent of hardware, it makes that hardware interchangeable. So the translation is, if something is interchangeable, I can shop around, and at the next purchasing event, I can select from a broader number of suppliers or a different set of model numbers to meet my requirements. That is what's giving you that negotiating clout, and that's what puts customers in complete control of the acquisition. It also helps customers negotiate better maintenance contracts on their existing equipment so they can extend the useful life of that equipment, knowing that they don't have to worry about specific model-to-model compatibility in their next purchase. Those can be independent acquisitions without worry about what you had in the past. The compatibility effect is fulfilled by having the Datacore software layered to facilitate the communication between past purchases and newer gear.
Okay. Thanks, John. And with that, we're going to turn it over to Kevin. Any other questions, please feel free to contact us here at TechExtend.
Thanks, Danielle, and thank you, Don, for the great job on the webinar today. Thanks again to everybody for attending. Like Danielle said, if you have any further questions, please contact us at info@techextend.com, or you can call us at 800-221-7710. Again, thanks, and everybody have a great afternoon.